Hi, boys and girls. Today we are starting our new topic, topic 14, which is all about graphs and data. And today we're going to learn how to compare and answer questions about objects that are on a graph. So let's get started with our lesson. Our words to know.
Girl. Look at the counters. How many more yellow counters are there than red?
So we know just looking at these counters, you can see that there's definitely more yellow counters than there are red counters. We want to know how many more extra yellow counters there are compared to the red. However, looking at counters this way could be a little bit confusing, and today we're going to learn how we can put something like counters into a graph to help us to understand our information.
These counters are hard to count. Do you think you could arrange the counters differently to make counting them easier? Yes, one way is to make a graph.
So this graph that you're looking at here almost looks similar to a 10 frame that we learned about, but in this case, there's more than 10. So making what is called a graph and putting them in boxes like this helps us to understand all of the information that we have about the counters.
To see how many more yellow counters there are, it is easier if the counters are in pairs. Each counter has a partner. Are the partners the same color or different colors?
So it wants us to match up the counters to be partners. Putting them in partners or pairs of two helps you to understand the information in the graph better. So the question asks, are the partners that are in the graph right now the same color or different colors? Well, one is red and one is yellow, so those colors are different.
They are different colors. How many red counters are on the graph?
Let's take a minute to now look at this graph and try and understand it. They placed all of the red counters, and they're asking how many red counters are on the graph. So all you have to do now that it's in a nice, neat graph is count them. So let's count together. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 red counters.
There are 4 red counters. How many yellow counters are on the graph?
Now, again, it says on the graph. Don't worry about these 2 extra ones just yet. We need to count the ones on the graph. Count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4.
There are 4 yellow counters. All the counters on the graph have a partner.
So now if you're matching pairs of 2, right now, there are the same number of red counters as there are yellow counters on this graph. But we're not done just yet.
There are no more red counters.
So just because we made partners doesn't mean that we can forget about these 2 extra yellow counters that are up here. They are part of our graph, and we need to put them on the graph, even though it won't have a red partner.
2 yellow counters do not have partners. There are 2 more yellow counters than red counters.
So putting all of your counters in a graph like this helps you to understand the information that you have. Now you can compare the red counters to the yellow counters, or vice versa. So it says that there are 2 yellow counters that do not have partners. That's what you see here. They don't have a red partner to match them. So what this graph now reads is that there are 2 more, meaning 2 extra, yellow counters than there are red counters.
The graph makes it easy to see which has more.
Now it's easy to compare. We can see that there are only 4 red counters and there are 6 yellow counters. So it's easy to see, right, because the yellow is much bigger than the red, that there are more yellow counters than there are red. That's the end of our little video, but we're not done just yet. I did put together some practice problems for us to complete together to make sure that we understand our lesson for today. So let's get started. All right, so what you're going to see in the next few problems is I'm going to give you some examples of some graphs with counters on them, and we're going to answer the questions based off of the graphs that we see. So let's take a look at question number 1. It says, which color has more, red or yellow? So what we need to do is we need to take a look at our graph. Now, something I want to point out to you in all the examples that we do together now is there are 2 counters that are outside of the graph. Those are not part of our graph and our information. Those are just so we know where to place the red counters and where to place the yellow counters. So we're only looking at the counters that are inside the purple graph. So let's keep that in mind when we complete our questions together. So number 1 says which color has more. So what we need to do is look at our graph and figure out how many red counters there are and how many yellow counters there are and compare them to see which one is greater. So let's look at the red counters. Count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red counters in this graph. And now the yellow. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 is greater than 4, so it is clear that there are more red counters than there are yellow. Number 2, it says how many counters do not have a partner. So it told us to organize our graph by putting all of the red counters together and all of the yellow counters together, however, to match them up to be in a pair. However, it's clear to see that there are more red counters than there are yellow. So we need to see how many counters do not have a partner. I've matched up the first groups of pairs that we have here, but now it's clear to see that this red counter does not have a partner. So there's one red counter that doesn't have a partner in this problem. Let's try another example, looking at a new graph. It says which color has fewer. Keep that in mind. Fewer means less. So let's look at the red counters that we have in this graph. Count with me. 1, 2, 3 red counters. And now my yellow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yellow counters. So which color has fewer or less? It's going to be the red counters. Let's look at question number 4. It says, how many fewer red counters are there than yellow counters? So in the beginning, we like to match them up to be a pair. But since there's more yellow counters, that means that some of them are not going to have a pair. I want to know how many fewer red counters are there than yellow, meaning how many missing red counters are there that don't have partners. So let's take a look here. When we compare them, we have 1 yellow counter that doesn't have a partner, 2, 3. So that means that there's 3 more yellow or 3 less red. So there are 3 fewer red counters than there are yellow in this graph. Another example, looking at this new graph, it says, is there the same, think about what that word means, same number of colors. So let's take a look at how many red counters we have here. Count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 red counters. Now let's count the yellow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there are 6 red and 6 yellow. So is there the same number of colors? Yes, there is. Number 6, how many counters do not have a partner? So we need to look at the beginning and match up our partners and see if there's any counters that do not have partners. And because there is the same number of red and yellow, that means every counter has a partner. So do any of them not have a partner? No. So we would write 0. Next question, it says, is there the same number of colors? So let's take a look. Looking at this graph, let's count the red first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 red counters. Now let's count the yellow. 1, 2. Is there the same number of colors? No, there is not. There's definitely less yellow counters. So let's take a look at question number 8. It says, which color has more? So looking at the graph, it should be very easy to find which one has more because it's nice and neat and organized. It's very clear to see that there is more red counters than there are yellow. Number 9, it says, how many counters do not have a partner? So again, we want to go to the beginning and match up our pairs. This is a pair. This is another pair. But now the rest do not have partners. So how many counters do not have partners? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4 do not have partners. So we would write that in there. All right, in our last example for today that we're going to practice, it says, how many more yellow counters are there than red counters? Now, when we are given questions like this of how many more or how many fewer, all it's asking for you to look at is to understand the graph and compare them. Compare the yellow to the red. See how many don't have a partner is really what it's asking us to do. So we want to know how many more yellow counters are there than red, because it's clear that there is more yellow than there are red. So let's take a look at our partners. We have one partner here. 2, 3 have partners. However, this yellow counter does not have a partner. So we would say that there is one more yellow counter than there are red counters because there's one yellow counter without a red partner. And that is the end of our little slideshow. I hope that you found this helpful. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and I will see you next time. Bye, boys and girls.